Hello again, my little skelly bobs, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be casting our critical eye over the principal undead faction of Warhammer the Old World. That's right, it's time to assess the pros and cons of every unit for the Tomb Kings of Khemri. And so, without further ado, let us arise, my legions, and march in perfect unison today's episode. You there, guardsmen! Do you like multi-part plastic sci-fi infantry that doesn't cost a kidney? Well, good news! The Mordian Glory channel is now officially sponsored by Wargames Atlantic. Wargames Atlantic sells fantastic sci-fi models which are perfect as alternative Imperial Guardsmen. This includes the Bulldogs, totally not Praetorians, or the Legrognards, which are totally not Mordians, Vestorians, or Kriegers, all in one box. And the best bit is, Wargames Atlantic offers a bulk buy discount, and the more you buy, the bigger the discount. Perfect for amassing those huge platoons of guardsmen. So what are you waiting, you fool? Click on the affiliate link down below, get yourself some great models, and support the channel today. As is tradition, let us begin with the units found in the Ravening Hordes book, and then at the end, we'll have a cheeky gander at the Arcane Journal for the Tomb Kings. First up, we have the Monarchs of Nehekhara, the Tomb Princes, and the Tomb Kings. There's no real surprises here. The Tomb King is your principal combat character in the army, and he has a stat line to reflect that. A good weapon skill of 6, a native strength of 5 and toughness of 5, plus 4 wounds and 4 attacks. He does have leadership 10, although bear in mind he is undead, so he's pretty much fearless, and he does have initiative 4, which is somewhat low in comparison to a lot of other Lord level characters for other factions, but it's undead, so you're a bit slower. Of course, the Tomb King is a pricey boy, coming in at 160 points. If you want to save a few points, you can go for the Tomb Prince, but you are going to lose a pip of weapon skill, a pip of strength, a wound, an initiative, an attack, and a leadership. As you would expect, these characters have access to a smorgasbord of equipment, everything from just an additional hand weapon up to, with the Tomb King, 100 points of magical equipment. The big thing with the Monarchs, though, is My Will Be Done. This allows you to take a leadership test during your command subphase, and it must be using your own leadership, so bear in mind the Tomb Prince only has leadership 9 versus the Tomb King 10, and if it is passed, you get to pick one of the following abilities for your Monarch and the unit that they have joined. So you can have Forward to Glory, giving you plus D3 movement, My Worthy Champions, plus 1 weapon skill, and Strike the Cobra, plus D3 initiative. Most of the time, you're going to go for Forward to Glory, because that will get you across the board quicker. Bear in mind that you cannot march as Tomb King, so this kind of trying to make up for that a bit. Once battle is joined, though, you will probably go for that extra weapon skill or initiative, depending on what kind of enemy you're facing. But the big question is, are these guys any good? Are they a smash or are they a pass? Well, in truth, they're an auto smash. You have to take one of these guys. If you are running a royal host or you are taking a grand army of Tomb Kings, which a lot of people will do, then you are obligated by law to take 1+ Tomb King or Tomb Prince. So unless you're in a mortuary cult, which you might be, a lot of competitive players have been having fun with that Army of Infamy, you're going to be taking one of these bad boys, so you might as well make the most out of it. Small side note here, these guys are one of the few models that can get on the big bone dragon. And I recently had a game versus a Tomb King on a bone dragon, and that was a really, really powerful combination. So one to look out for. Our next unit is another character, and this is the Royal Herald. These guys are fairly cheap, coming in at 60 points. They can take up to 75 points of magical equipment. They have weapon skill 4, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wounds, with 3 attacks and leadership 8. The big thing with the Royal Herald is it's essentially your BSB, but it's got some modified rules. Instead of the reroll to sort of panic and break checks, instead hold your ground with the Banner of the King. It means that friendly units within the Battle Standard Bearer's command range may reroll any failed leadership tests. Now, this is important because it applies to your monarchs trying to do things like My Will Be Done and your Liche Priests trying to do things like Arise. In addition, friendly units in the Battle Standard Bear's command range reduce the number of wounds lost due to the Unstable special rule by D3. This is a half-decent ability. I guess it means that a few less Skellybobs or Tomb Guard will go down due to a bad combat, and you do take a surprising amount of casualties due to your models crumbling in Tomb Kings. But the issue is that this would be perfect if you could combine it with something like a Necrosphinx, but the rule specifically says that it is not cumulative with the Indomitable X special rule. So don't be out there trying to make your Necrosphinx almost immune to crumble. You've got to crumble like everybody else. Overall, the Royal Heralds are a good unit, but certainly not an auto-include. I have seen people run them in their armies. I've also seen people not run them in their armies. Overall, I'm going to give it a tentative smash because it is not a bad unit, but it's certainly not one you need to rush out and get your hands on straight away. The same cannot be said for our next characters, the Liche Priests. Similar to the Monarchs, these guys are kind of an auto smash because you have to have at least one of them in your army. This is because there is a special rule called the Hierophant. This essentially represents the top priest in your entire army, probably even in your entire kingdom. And if the Hierophant should die, the magical animus of the army starts to dissipate. All of your units in the army lose the Regeneration X special rule, and in addition, at the end of the phase in which your Hierophant was removed from play as a casualty, and during each of your start of turn subphases for the remainder of the game, all friendly units within a current undead special rule that are currently on the battlefield must take a leadership test. If the test is failed, the unit loses a number of wounds equal to the amount by which it failed the test. If the Hierophant goes down, your units get a lot less durable and they start to crumble on their own. Now, you might be listening to this and thinking, that sounds absolutely awful. Why am I mandated by law to take one of these things? It seems like a huge debuff to the Tomb King faction. Well, the thing is, you want to take these Liche Priests anyway. And in fact, one of the more competitive builds of Tomb Kings is Mortuary Cult, which is something we'll be looking at a little bit later with Arcane Journal. And that focuses really heavily on Liche Priests. And the reason why people love these guys so much is this is how you raise your models back from the dead. It's one of the key, iconic, quintessential things about having a Tomb King army. The enemy knocks your skeletons down, and they just rise once more. This is all done via the Arise special rule. During the command subphase of their turn, if you're not engaged in combat, you can attempt to resurrect the fallen. You take a leadership test, and if you pass, then you start to arise models back into a friendly unit. So you pick one friendly unit, and if it is a regular infantry or heavy infantry or swarm, you get D3 wounds plus your wizard level back. So if you're level 4 and you get this off and you get skeletons, on average, you're getting 6 Skellybobs back. If it's light cavalry or heavy cavalry, you recover +1 plus your wizard level. So still, that can be quite a lot of people back into the unit. To get 5 cavalry back into a squad. If the unit type is monstrous infantry or monstrous cavalry or light chariot, it recovers a number of wounds equal to this character's level of wizardry. Level 4, you get 4 wounds back. If the unit's troop type is heavy chariot, monster creature or behemoth or war machine, it recovers a single wound. I guess it's just a little bit harder to stitch back the big things together than it is to simply get the bag of bones to reassemble themselves. It's important to note that you can use Arise multiple times on the same unit. You can't use Arise multiple times from one Liche Priest in one turn. No, everyone just gets one chance each turn. But if you've got multiple Liche Priests, each one of those can do an Arise test. Each one of those could choose to pick the same unit. And that is a great way of really getting those casualties back. And if you've had a unit that's kind of shattered, well, I've seen units that were down to 1.5 ranks get fully replenished by a seriously good Arise session. So not only do you have to take one by law, not only are they a key factor in your army's entire mechanics, but also well, they're your main source of getting a level 4 wizard on the board, and you pretty much always want to have a level 4 wizard in your army. So they're smash, smash, bloody smash. The last character in this roster is the Necrotect. This guy is like a warrior priest for Empire. You pass a leadership test and you can give a big buff to the unit that they have joined. In this case, you get +1 attack and hate to all enemies. That is a phenomenally powerful ability. Being able to get any sort of extra attacks is huge in a game where generally everyone has 1 attack. And getting rerolls in a game where generally there are very few rerolls to go around, if it was just one or the other, this would be a good ability. But the fact that it's both is wild. So this guy's an obvious auto smash, right? Well, sadly not. I'm going to have to give him a pass. And this is because, very simply, he's leadership 7. That makes it incredibly unreliable to get this off, even if you have a Royal Warden nearby who's giving you that reroll leadership. I've played games with Empire Warrior Priests which work in a very similar manner to this, and sometimes I've just never passed the leadership test, just never gone off, just kept rolling 8s and 9s. And sometimes I've got it off and it was in a turn when it really didn't matter. Oh, turn 1 when no one's in combat. Oh, okay, yeah, great, extra attack. And then when it actually does matter, I fail my leadership test. Sometimes it comes off at the perfect moment, but there's a reason this guy's only 55 points. It's a great ability, but it's not one that you can rely upon at all. But that covers the characters. Now let's get into the rank and file, the infantry. First into the breach, we have the Tomb Guard. These guys are a cut above your regular Skellybobs. They have got weapon skill 3 and a native strength 4 and toughness 4. And they're surprisingly affordable at only 10 points a pop. And this is even more of a bargain when you realise that they come with light armour and shields already baked into their cost. You could upgrade them to have halberds, but you don't really need to. They're already natively strength 4, and thanks to the Kopeth special rule, they actually get AP -1 on their hand weapons. But wait, there's more! They also have the Cleaving Blow special rule, which gives them kind of like mini Killing Blow. If you roll a 6 to wound, then enemy infantry and heavy cavalry and stuff like that, anything that's not a monster really, does not get a regen or an armor save, although you can still take a ward save. And lastly, they can be upgraded to have Drilled for just 1 point per model. And Drilled is one of the best special rules in the game. Overall, these guys are a clear smash in my mind. And I have seen big blocks of Tomb Guard be used very effectively in games. Next up, we've got the Humble Skeleton Warriors. These guys are only 4 points a pop, but they are really trash. Weapon skill 2. Leadership 5, which does matter if the army starts to crumble. I mean, it's alright, they've got regen 6+, but at best they're going to have a 5-up save. They're just a tar pit. They're a tar pit through and through. Now, if you had to take these guys, I'd say they were smash, because you have to take them to fill out your core. But the thing is, you don't. You can take 1 unit of Tomb Guard as core, and they are a much better choice for filling that core requirement out. And also, you have to take 1 unit of skeletons, but it doesn't have to be skeleton warriors. It can be our next unit, the skeleton archers, and honestly, you should pick the skeleton archers every single time over skeleton warriors. The reason for this is very simple. Yes, they are 1 point more per model. Yes, they don't come with any save whatsoever. But the big thing is that they have Arrows of the Asp. This means that no matter what, no matter the modifiers, no matter how far away your opponent is, no matter how much cover they're in, you always hit them on a 5+. This is because of the skeleton archers having ballistic skill 2 and Arrows of the Asp, meaning that you never apply any modifiers to their hit rolls when shooting, regardless of the source of the modifier. And on top of this, you also can combine skeleton archers with a character with the Amulet of the Serpent. This is a magical item found in the Arcane Journal, and it gives the wearer of the amulet and the unit that they join poisoned attacks. So arrows of the Asp plus poison arrows equals actual damage. You have to take one unit of skeleton archers or warriors. Always go for the archers for your mandatory unit, and then go for some tomb guard to fill out the rest of your core attacks. Our last skeletal infantry are the skirmishers. These are a bit of a weird one. They're one less leadership, but they get an extra pip of movement. That would be kind of cool if they could march, but with them not being able to march, I'm not sure how useful it is. And they only come with hand weapons, so there are some hidden costs if you want to start giving them like war bows and ambushes and stuff like that. I don't think skirmishers are a bad unit. They are skirmishers at the end of the day, and that's a viable tool to have in the toolbox. I just wonder if there's going to be any room for them. Once you've taken the skeleton archers and the tomb guard, really I think you've probably filled up most of the core that you want to fill up. I'm going to give skeleton skirmishers a pass, purely because I've never seen anyone run them, and I'm not sure they're something that Tomb Kings need in their armies. But one unit which is an absolute smash purely because of the rule of cool, it is Ushabti. Reminiscent of the Anubis warriors from films like The Mummy, The Scorpion King, and games like Age of Mythology, and so many other media, Ushabti are instantly recognizable and ultra iconic for the Tomb Kings. And on top of this, they're actually really good as well. For 49 points a pop, you are getting a movement 5, weapon skill 4, which is actually one of the higher weapon skills we've seen so far in this army, plus native strength 4, native toughness 4, 3 wounds and 3 attacks with leadership 8, which makes them a little bit more resilient to crumbling. In addition, they come fully loaded with equipment. Heavy armor gives them a 5+ armor save, which when combined with their 6 of regen is not a bad defensive profile, especially with those 3 wounds. They also have hand weapons, which come with the Khopesh special rule, giving them inbuilt AP -1, and they have their unique ritual blades. These are like great weapons. They give them strength +2, putting them up to strength 6, and the AP -3, but they do strike last. Strikes lasting isn't such a big problem though, because they're already initiative 2. So if someone charges you, or it's an ongoing combat, you're probably going second anyway. If you charge the enemy, you go down from initiative 5 on the charge to initiative 4. That might make a difference. There are some initiative 4 base units out there, or maybe you're facing some spears, but in that case, you'd still be fighting at the enemy at the same time. My thinking is that most time you're going to default to those ritual blades, but if you have to strike first because the enemy is pretty tasty, you can always fall back to those Khopeshes, and they're still totally viable weapons. Another option for your Ushabti is to take the Great Bows. This turns them into mini bolt throwers with a 30-inch range, strength 6, AP -1, but with armor bane 2, and multiple wounds and volley fire. Not sure if you're ever going to need volley fire, but if you have a unit of 6 of these guys on a hill, might make for a surprisingly tasty ranged unit. Asp, especially when you take into account that they have arrows of the Asp. You like that one? I thought that was quite a good joke actually. With their ballistic skill 3, this means that they are going to be hitting on 4s with those big bows and doing some big damage. Long story short, whether you decide to go melee or ranged, Ushabti have got a place in your army, and they are a smash. From the largest infantry choice to the smallest, we've got the Tomb Swarms. These are pretty typical swarmy things. They've got a good movement, they have a high volume of attacks and wounds, but they are utterly fragile at just toughness 2. Their strength 2 isn't so bad though, because they do have poisoned attacks and you can make them ambushers. But at 37 points each, it does feel a little pricey. I think Tomb Swarms are fine. They're kind of on the fence. They neither smash nor pass. If you want to have them, fine, but you don't have to take them at all. In a similar vein, you've got Carrion. These are kind of like your Great Eagle equivalents, but not quite there. They've got 3 attacks each, which is alright. They've got 2 wounds, which is a bit low. A good volley of arrows will bring one of these things down. especially when they're only toughness 4 and the only defensive thing they have is a 6+ regen. They do fly 10 inches, they are skirmishers, and they do have swift stride. So maybe they're a lot faster than you expect, but with a minimum size being 2, that means that they're not 27 points for a unit, they are 54 points for a unit. I'm not going to break the bank, but it is a little bit more than I want. If I could take these in just like ones and have them flapping around, being really annoying, going after enemy war machines, I'd consider them good. But with you needing to take 2 of them, I'm just not feeling it. 2 swarms, carrion, they're okay, but I'm going to give both a pass. From the infantry to the cavalry, we have got the skeleton horsemen. I don't know why, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for skeleton horsemen. Maybe it's just those classic models. I've always just thought they look kind of cool. That makes it even harder when I say they're utterly trash and a total pass. It's a skeleton on a horse. The skeleton warriors were absolutely trash, paying almost 3 times more for the same thing just to go a bit faster so you can laminate yourself into an enemy unit isn't really worth it. Especially when you take into account that you've got to start paying for things like cavalry spears and then countercharge. So they're actually getting up to like 13 points a model if you want them to even do anything whatsoever. Just avoid them, man. They're not even fast because they can't march because you're undead. So they don't even solve that problem for you. You have got faster, better units that hit harder that are actually going to achieve something. Leave the Skelly Horsemen at home. And it's exactly the same thing with the Skeleton Horse Archers. They are too expensive. You're not getting any additional firepower out of them. And the speed really doesn't matter. But before you write off the entire Tomb King Cavalry Corps, take a look at the Necropolis Knights. But before you write off all of the Tomb King Cavalry Corps, take a cheeky gander at Necropolis Knights. Now, these are an interesting choice. At 55 points a pop, they might seem kind of expensive, but I think it's well worth it. They come with Weapon Skill 4, which is damn high for a Tomb King unit, and a native Strength 4 and Toughness 4, with 3 wounds and a whopping 2 attacks. Then you get to the Necro Serpent, which gives an additional 3 Strength 5 attacks. Baked into their cost, you've got cavalry spears, light armor, and shields, and you can combine that with the armored hide of the Necro Serpent, giving them high strength attacks with good AP and a 4-up save followed by a 6-up regen. They do impact hits, they're indomitable, they've got Kopeshes, they've got the cleaving blow, although that does only apply to the riders, not the snakes, and they've got poison attacks on the snakes, and they have swift stride. All of this is just good. A definite smash unit. After the knights, we have the Stalkers. I want to like this unit, but I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not getting it. They're basically the same points as the knights, but they don't quite have as a good stat line. They have the same number of wounds, they are the same strength, and they are the same toughness, but their weapon skill is a lot lower, and they just don't get as many attacks. If you get the extra D3 attacks from the Writhing Tail, on average you're looking at 4 attacks a pop versus the 5 attacks guaranteed from the knights each time. Also, those attacks don't seem as strong because they're coming in at strength plus AP. If you have the halberd, still not quite as strong as if you're just hitting with cavalry spears. Do you know what I mean? They're just slightly less in a lot of different ways. I guess the big reason for them is the Petrifying Gaze. This is a ranged attack, and it has an 18-inch range, strength 2. It's got a weird mechanic where, because you're just sort of staring into their eyes, what you do is you substitute the target's toughness with its initiative. So you probably do end up wounding a little bit easier than expected. And it can do multiple wounds D3, which is nice. But you still have to hit with this thing. And it is only ballistic skill 3. And I feel like it's going to suffer from long range. Because there's no arrows of the asp or anything here. They're okay. They're okay. And if I'm missing something, guys, please let me know down in that comment section. But on their own, they're okay. But in comparison to knights, well, I'm going to have to give the Stalkers a pass. In the crosshairs next are the Skeleton Chariots. These are possibly the most iconic unit for the Tomb Kings, even more so than some of the others that we've discussed. And they're decent. They're not great, they're not terrible, they're just good. They are 43 points a pop. That is one of the cheapest ways that you're going to get 3 wounds, toughness 4 models into your army. The skeleton crew are a little bit more skilled than your regular skeleton warriors, being weapon skill 3. That helps with their cavalry spears, which come baked into their profile. They've also got war bows with arrows of the asp, and they're pretty fast for Tomb Kings with a movement of 8, combining that with reserve move and swift stride. They aren't too durable because they only have a 5+ armor and a 6 regen, but they do get impact hits D3, giving them a little bit of extra punch when they charge in. I'm going to give them a smash. It's not a mega bunker busting smash. It's not a tentative one. It's just a nice normal smash. An okay unit for an okay points cost. But now it's time to get into the monsters, the undead constructs which the Tomb Kings are famous for. And our first one is not strictly its own unit, but it is big enough that I think it deserves a mention, the Necrolith Bone Dragon. Technically, you can only take this as a mount for your Tomb King or one of your high Liche Priests. But it's a real beast. Movement 6 with strength 6, +1 toughness to any character that rides it, +5 wounds. That's a lot of wounds. And it's got 5 attacks. It has Wicked Claws, it has a breath weapon, and the big reason I like it is it's got Cloud of Dust. This means that enemy units suffer an additional -1 to hit modifier. That plus the toughness plus the wounds can make this thing really hard for armies that rely upon shooting to actually handle it before it gets in amongst them and starts mashing them up. I do think that the Bone Dragons are very good. I think they're very competitive. And I have yet to face a Tomb King army isn't fielding one of these things, either ridden by a king or by a big priest. Another monster is the Khemrian Warsphinx. I think these are so cool. Like, I would have one of these in my Tomb King army, which I will inevitably get because I love Old World so much. It's a bunch of Tomb Guard riding around on the back of a Warsphinx. It's brilliant. 4 attacks from the Warsphinx at strength 5, weapon skill 4. It's also toughness 6 with 5 wounds. You can add a couple more crew in there if you want to, giving you a total of up to 4 crew, each of which is going to get an attack with a cavalry spear, and they also have short bows with arrows of the asp. The Tomb Guard crew do get cleaving blow as well, and they also have kopeshes, so even after the initial charge is done, there's still a bit of AP rocking around there. This unit does cause terror, and it does have D3 stomp attacks. It is a armor 5+ model, which is a little bit lower than I would like, and it does only have regen 6. It's also a little bit lower than I would like. You can upgrade it to have an Envenom Sting, which allows you to make 1 attack with poisoned attacks strike first, but still just strength normal AP dash. And bear in mind, you don't get an extra attack. This is from your 4 attacks, you can do 1 of them using the Envenom Sting. Otherwise, your attacks are AP -2 with the Wicked Claws. Or you go for a Fiery Roar, which is a breath weapon at strength 4 AP -1. Overall, the Khemrian Warsphinx is okay. It looks cool, but what it actually does is okay at best. The big problem is the price tag. It's 175 points. Now that isn't too expensive. That's not too expensive at all. I mean, if you start loading up with the extra crew, it's going to get up to like 195 points. And then if you want to start adding some of the other upgrades, it might start getting a bit pricey. But just at its base cost, it's about 175 points. The issue is not its cost. Issue is the cost of another monster, and that is the Necrosphinx. At 195 points, I think this might be the most auto-include model in the Tomb King's army. It's so good. Movement 6, weapon skill 4, strength 5, toughness 6, 6 wounds with 5 attacks. It also has a 5+ save with a 5+ regen, making it already way tougher than the Warsphinx. And it gets D3 plus 2 stomp attacks. And it can fly. It can bloody fly. Fly 9 with Swift Stride with Terror. It's equipped with the Cleaving Blades, which give it AP -1 and Killing Blow, and you can allocate one of your attacks to try a Decapitating Strike, which give you Strength +5, making you Strength 10, AP -4, but also Killing Blow and Monster Slayer and Strikes Last. Just need that lucky 6, and you are going to absolutely splat anything that you hit with the Decapitating Strike. You can upgrade it to have an Envenom Sting for 5 points, again giving it poison attacks to strike first, but I would never ever do this. I would always just stick with the Cleaving Blades. This thing is tough enough that it can take the punch, survive the fact that it's probably going to be striking last, and then turn around and just twat people. But we're not quite done yet. There are a couple more monsters we need to cast our eyes over, and the first one is the Tomb Scorpion. These guys are an easy smash. They're fairly affordable at 70 points each. They come with Strength 5 and Toughness 5 and 3 wounds and Initiative 3 and 4 attacks. That's just a really good profile across the bat. They have movement 7, but you can actually rise them from the sands using one of your Liche Priests, and this means they can essentially ambush onto the board, which is really cool. They have Indomitable 1, which I was not expecting, making them slightly resistant to crumble. They're also Magic Resistance 1. I mean, these guys have got a little bit of everything. They have got Heavy Armor plus Regen 6+, and they even get some Stomp attacks. Only D3, but that plus your 4 attacks base is tasty. Their Decapitating Claws are Strength plus AP -2, so that is Strength 5, AP -2, with Killing Blow and Monster Slayer, so just go in there, snip, you're dead. And they also have an Envenom Sting, which is what we've seen with the other ones. I probably wouldn't bother with it. Overall, for 70 points, that's a great little model. Definitely something you want to consider in your army. Real Force Disruptor, and on its own, a pretty good unit that can handle a lot of targets. The last monster is the Necrolith Colossus, aka the Bone Giant. Out of all of the iconic, cool, great models and units we've talked about today, the Necrolith Colossus holds a special place in my heart because it was the first Tomb King model I remember seeing when I was a kid, and I opened up a White Dwarf Battle Report many years ago, and it's always stuck with me as just the Tomb King thing. Sadly though, in Old World, this unit is probably a pass. It's not bad in terms of its rules and its stat line. It has Strength 6, Toughness 6, 5 wounds, and it has 4 attacks. It's got Heavy Armor plus 6 regen. It does D3 Stomp attacks, and its paired Great Kopeshes give it AP -2 and Killing Blow. It also has Unstoppable Assault. It's a unique rule. Each time you cause an unsaved wound, you can make 1 additional attack, as long as this was in a turn you charged. And these additional attacks could also create other extra attacks, so you just keep hacking and hacking and hacking. The issue is that you're only weapon skill 3, so you're probably not going to hit that many times, and you've only got 4 attacks. So you might generate 1 or 2 extra attacks outside of being really lucky or just butchering down ranks of goblins. I suppose the only real problem with the Colossus is points cost. It's 160. On its own, that makes sense. That's reasonable. It's in line with other giants, right? The issue is, again, that goddamn Necrosphinx. It sort of just squats on the whole monster part of the book. And every time you think about taking something like the Warsphinx or taking the Bone Giant, you come back to the inevitable conclusion that you're just better off spending few more points and getting the Warsphinx. So it's not terrible, but it's going to get a pass simply because there is another unit here which can do its job better. After the monsters, we have got the war machines. First up is the Screaming Skull Catapult. I'm going to give this thing a smash for two very important reasons. Firstly, it's unbelievably cool. I mean, really, that's enough. Secondly, it is a stone thrower, and stone throwers are very good in Old World. One of the best war machine types you can get. A lot of Orc players are loving it right now because they are smashing it with their Rock Lobbers and with their Doom Divers. And Screaming Skull Catapults can help emulate some of that success in a Tomb King army. The only issue with them is they're kind of expensive. 105 points. That puts them 20 or 30 points ahead of some other faction stone throwers. The reason that you are spending so much more is because you have a bunch of extra rules in here. Firstly, you have got flaming attacks in here, which might not seem like a lot, but it is still something that is being baked into your points cost. And more importantly, you have magical attacks. That could be a big deal because it allows you to affect ethereal units and it allows you to get past a whole bunch of ward saves. Not every ward save, but a lot of ward saves are contingent on the attacks being non-magical. On top of this, you actually have some kind of defense against counter battery fire from things like cannons because you have a regen 6-up. Now, it's not great, it's probably not to be relied upon, but it may save your ass at a really important point. Empire player launches a great cannon into you, you make that sweet 6-up, might be the reprieve you need. Lastly, you've got Screaming Skulls. Any unit that suffers one or more unsaved wounds from this weapon must make a panic test as if it had taken heavy casualties. Now, that does mean that you could force enemy units to fall back in good order. And if they're not careful, that could be falling back in good order right off the board. There is one upgrade for the catapult, which is Skulls of the Foe. This means that each enemy unit that is within 2d6 inches of the central hole of the blast template after it's scattered suffers a -1 to hit modifier. That lasts until the start of your next turn. So it lasts throughout all of the rest of your turn that you fired the catapult, and then it lasts throughout the enemy's turn. It's good, and messing with people's leadership can be huge, but it's 20 points. Add that on top of the fact that you're already paying a bit of a premium for this catapult. You may take it, you may not, but it is certainly not an auto-include. Without it, the catapult is still a smash. The last unit in Ravening Hordes for the Tomb Kings is the Casket of Souls. It's the Ark of the Covenant for Indiana Jones. It's that cool. I almost don't need to tell you why you should include one in your army, but I suppose I must for the sake of completeness. Firstly, it's only 135 points. Not even going to break the bank. Slap it in there. Slap it in there every single time. For that, you are getting a Toughness 6 4 wound model, which has got regen 5 up. It also is an immovable object, so when it's down, and it is indomitable, making it fairly resistant to losing wounds from crumble. The big thing about the Casket of Souls, though, is it's a pretty good force multiplier. Firstly, you've got Covenant of Power. Whilst within 12 inches of a Casket of Souls, friendly Liche Priests may apply a +1 modifier to any casting roll they make. Additionally, any model, friend or foe, that casts a bound spell whilst within 12 inches of the Casket of Souls may apply a +1 modifier to the casting roll. Note, however, that this bonus does not apply to any bound spells cast by the Casket of Souls. Speaking of bound spells, the Casket of Souls has two. There is the Light of Death. This has a casting value of 7+. It is a magic missile. It has a bound power level of 3 and a range of 36 inches. That might seem like a ridiculous range, but bear in mind the thing can't move. It kind of needs it Otherwise, it's not going to be doing anything most of the game. The target enemy unit must immediately make a leadership test. If this test is passed, it suffers D3 strength 3 hits with an AP of -1. That's bad. But if the test is failed, it just goes bonkers. The target unit suffers D6 plus 3 strength 6 hits, each with multiple wounds 2 special rule, with no armor or regen saves permitted, but ward saves can still be taken. So if you lower someone's leadership via like magic, like Spiritual Vortex, I think is one way you can do it, and then you hit them with the Light of Death and they fail that leadership test, you're just going to start really wrecking that enemy unit. But he not only attack, he also protect. The Light of Protection is an enchantment with a casting value of 8+, range self. It is also power level 3 on the bound spells, and the effect is remains in play. Whilst this bound spell is in play, this friendly model and any other friendly unit within 18 inches of this model gains a 6+ ward save against any wound suffered. In addition, whilst this bound spell is in play, enemy units suffer a -1 modifier to any rolls to hit made against this model and any friendly unit within 18 inches of this model. However, if this model casts the Light of Death bound spell, this bound spell will immediately expire. So essentially, you can open the casket and the spirits are going to come out and give everyone a hug, or you can open the casket and everyone's faces are going to melt off. But you can't do both. That is, of course, unless you take 2 of them, because you can take 0-1 Casket of Souls per 1,000 points. And both abilities are really good. The Light of Death is just great for doing damage, and the Light of Protection, that 6+ ward save might not seem like much, but bear in mind that a lot of your units are going to be on a 4+ or 5+ armor save, then a 6+ ward, then a 5+ or 6+ regen. All those defensive layers mean that a lot less damage is getting through to the Tomb Kings, and what damage you do very well could get undone if they have some good Arise rolls. That may cover everything in Ravening Hordes, but we ain't done yet. We've still got the Tomb King Arcane Journal, and we're going to be starting off very strong with Settra the Imperishable, the Great King of Nehekhara. This guy is an absolute beast. He has 2 pages of rules just to cover everything that he can do. Starting off simply with his stat line, he is weapon skill 7, making him the highest weapon skill model that you can take, and he is strength 6 with toughness 5, and he has 5 attacks at leadership 10. He also is on the Chariot of the Gods, which is also strength 5 and toughness 5, but gives him 8 bloody wounds. That's almost as many wounds as a bone dragon with a dude on top of it. Skeletal Steeds, well, that's just 4 of them, giving him an extra 4 attacks. Probably shouldn't overlook it because there is 9 attacks in total coming from Settra, just looking at his base stat line. He has a 4+ armor save because of his big chariot, and he comes equipped with the Blessed Blade of Patra, probably mispronouncing that, the Chariot of the Gods, the Crown of Nehekhara, and the Scarab Brooch of Assyrian. He is a level 1 wizard, which isn't much to write home about, but it's an extra spellcaster in your army, and he knows spells from the lore of necromancy. He has a laundry list of special rules, many of which are unique to him. He's got Command of the Legions, Curse of Necropolis, Dry as Dust, Flammable, Impact hits 2d3, that's a lot. Indomitable 3, My Will Be Done, Nehekhara and Undead, Regeneration 5+, Settra Does Not Kneel, and Settra the Great. Many of these are familiar with you. You guys know what Indomitable does. You know what My Will Be Done does because of us Tomb Princes. So let's focus on the ones that are unique to him. First up, we have Command of the Legions. Settra gains the Arise special rule, and unlike other models with special rule, may use it even when engaged in combat. That's really tasty. He's only level 1, like we said, but the fact he's leadership 10 means that you're basically going to get a rise off every turn unless you're very unlucky. And, unless I'm missing something, technically you could combine that with the Royal Herald, which would allow him a reroll, making it even more likely you were going to get it off. Settra Does Not Kneel. Settra must always accept the challenge unless Nekaph, Emissary Settra, is engaged in the same combat, in which case Nekaph must accept the challenge on Settra's behalf. It's a fluffy rule, it's a flavor rule, it's cool. Settra the Great. If your army includes Settra, he must be the army's general and must be chosen to be the army's Hierophant, even if he does not have the highest level of wizardry in your army. In addition, Settra has a command range of 18 inches. I mean, Settra, he's the man. No one else is going to get to be the Hierophant. This is what I love about this guy, and if you read into his lore, it's so good. On a serious note, him being the Hierophant isn't a bad thing at all. Yeah, maybe you'd want it to be a dude hanging around at the back being a bit safe, but Settra's got the defensive profile to be able to be your Hierophant, be stuck in, and still be okay. The Chariot of the Gods has its own special rules. Impact hits caused by the Chariot of the Gods have the flaming attacks and magical attack special rule. Flaming attacks, okay. Magical attacks, yes please. In addition, when fielded with a Necrolith Royal Host army, this model may join a unit of Tomb Guard Chariots as if its troop type were light chariot. That is very interesting. That's a real chonky unit there. We're looking at Tomb Guard Chariots in a moment, but you could make a bit of a Death Star with that. A huge rule is the Crown of Nehekhara. Settra's My Will Be Done. That thing that gives you more marching, more weapon skill, more initiative, whichever one of those you want to go for. Affects all friendly units with the Nehekhara Undead special rule within 6 inches of him, not just a unit he has joined. Considering this guy is on a 100 by 150 mil base, that is a really big footprint of units he could affect. The last couple of special rules he has is kind of in relation to the equipment he's got. So the Scarab Brooch of Ushbti gives him a 5+ ward save against any wound suffered. That's decent. Combine that with his 4 regular save, his 5 regen, and his 8 wounds, and there's a lot of defensive buffs there for Settra. And then we've got the Blessed Blade of Petra. This is AP -3 with flaming attacks and magical attacks. It does require 2 hands. Any enemy models that suffer 1 or more unsaved wounds from the Blessed Blade of Petra suffers a -1 modifier to its hit roll, both when shooting and in combat for the remainder of the game. That does seem like a really, really nice thing to have. It seems pretty beasty, but bear in mind that if this is in combat, if they're having to survive that for the rest of the game, if they're going to have that applied to the rest of the game, there's a real chance that Settra's dead, which is not an ideal situation. What I think this is really for is to give Settra a bit of protection in some ongoing combats. So Settra goes in there, he takes a wound off, and sure, the enemies might still be around, but now that combat is going to be heavily in his favor, as he's got all those defensive buffs, plus the enemy now might be at -1 to hit. It'll give Settra a little bit of protection against some people who might have higher weapon skill than him, and also just gives him a bit more insurance in case a round of combat doesn't go his way, or, perish the thought, he gets into combat with something he might not be able to handle. All of these special rules are bonuses and buffs and are good things for Settra to have. So naturally his points cost is big. It's really big. It's 445 points. I know that it's a crime for me not to give Settra an instant smash, and that if I don't give him a smash, he's going to come and haunt me in my dreams and like hunt me down and turn me into one of his legions. But he's very expensive. He's very good, but he's very expensive. I'm going to give him a smash because I do fear for my life, but it is a smash with a little bit of a caveat, a contingent. You kind of need to build your army around this guy. You need to take into account that almost 25% of your points are going to be going into this one model. It's going to be taking up a lot of your potential points for characters, and between him and the minimum that you need to take for core, you're only going to have about 1,000 points left to spend on other things. So he's good, but you need to have a game plan for him. Settra is not the only special character in this book. We've also got Nekaph, the Emissary of Settra, his Royal Herald. For 120 points, this guy's got a decent stat line. Weapon skill 5, strength 4, toughness 4, only 2 wounds. bit of a pisser. He's got 3 attacks. The big thing, though, is the special rules that he has. The Herald of Despair. Any enemy unit that is in base contact with Nekaph or unit has joined must roll an extra d6 when making a fear or terror test. Considering that everyone causes fear in the undead, and there's a lot of things that cause terror, that can be quite a big deal. He's also Settra's champion. Nekaph must always issue and accept challenges if possible. However, challenges issued by Nekaph cannot be refused. In addition, whilst engaged in a challenge, Nekaph strikes a killing blow if he rolls a natural 5 or 6 when making a roll to wound, rather than just the usual 6. That's quite a big deal. It's only 3 attacks, but that's quite a big deal. He's also got the Flail of Conquered Kings. This is strength +2, meaning that in total he is strength 6. AP -2, and it does cause multiple wounds, but it does require 2 hands. The Flail of Conquered Kings strength modifier applies only during the first round of combat, though. Overall, I'm going to give Nekaph a pass. He's very expensive for 120 points, and the killing blow thing is brilliant. But with only 2 wounds, there's a real chance that this guy just dies first. He's only got light armor. He doesn't have a ward save. And regen 5 is tasty, but I don't think it's enough to keep him around. The last special character is Prince Apophas, the Cursed Scarab Lord. For 130 points, you get a weapon skill 4, kind of low for a character. Strength 4, toughness 3, kind of low. 4 wounds, that's alright, with 5 attacks, leadership 8. He has light armor and regen 5+, but there is no ward save here. The big thing is that he flies and is an ambusher, so he's quite fast and also might pop up in areas you won't expect. But the main reason you're taking him is his special rules. First one is Scarab Prince. Should Prince Apophas lose his last wound before his model is removed from play, all enemy units within 2d6 of him suffer 2d6 strength 2 hits with an AP of -1. Only strength 2, but it's going to affect potentially a lot of units and could generate quite a lot of hits. We've also got Ursirian's Reaper. After deployment, nominate a single character in your opponent's muster list. Apophas may reroll any failed rolls to hit or to wound made against that character, and also you get magical attacks when attacking that guy as well. It's okay, the 4 rerolls to hit is nice, but remember it's only against 1 single character, and this guy's not that tough, so you might struggle to get him there, especially if that character's embedded in some kind of big unit, or if that character is flying around on a big dragon or something. The last one is Swarming Mass. As a swarm of scarabs in Apophas' accursed jaw rises up from the dust of the desert, his gleaming skull opens its fleshless jaw wide, unleashing an all-consuming cloud of flesh-eating beetles upon his enemies. It's a breath weapon. It's only strength 2 with AP nothing, but a wound roll of a 4+ is always successful, regardless of the target's toughness. The thing with this guy is there's just not enough of anything. So he's got 4 wounds with a 5 at regen. That's good. But he's only toughness 3 with light armor and no ward save. That's bad. He's got 5 attacks. That's good. But they're only at strength 4, only at weapon skill 4, and best at AP -1 thanks to that Khopesh. That's bad. The best way that I can think of using this chap is lean into the fact he causes terror. You could have him ambush, get behind enemy lines, go after enemy war machines. He can fly, and he might just charge into them and they just break and flee because of how terrifying he is. Maybe they've got a wizard hanging around at the back, and you can select that for Ursirian's Reaper, maybe. Sadly, I just don't think there's enough there for that. So he's very cool. I really like the idea, and reading into his lore, I actually really want to get this model at some point, but I'm going to have to give him a pass. Now that we've covered all of the special characters, it's time to get into the rest of the units. And first up, we have the Arch Necrotect. You could be forgiven for just passing over this guy's unit entry and thinking, oh, he's just a slightly better Necrotect. But the truth is, he's actually a very different unit. He does have slightly better stats. For example, he has got Leadership 8, and he still does need to do a leadership test to get one of his abilities off. But that ability is very different. He gives a plus D3 modifier to the initiative. Now, in many ways, this is utterly shite, because a lot of Tomb King units are fairly low initiative. So trying to boost them up is just going to put you on parity with the other factions, which might sound like a good thing, but then you've got to remember there's charges involved, and suddenly you're going to be striking last again anyway. It's okay, and I'm sure there's going to be some people that could point out some very good examples of where that initiative matters. But for me, the one that's getting me interested is Stone Shaper. This allows you to pick one Necrolith Colossus, Necrosphinx, Ushabti, or Venerable Ushabti, we'll be getting to those in a moment, and improve their regen by 1. So that means you go from regen 6 to regen 5. But the thing that is catching my eye is that Necrosphinx. It's already an amazing model. Taking that from 5 at regen to a 4 at regen is frankly broken, and I love it. The best bit, you don't have to pass the leadership test. There's no leadership test involved. You just pick one unit and it gets the buff. I was so ready to give this guy a pass until I actually looked into his datasheet, and now I'm giving him a smash. And I am very surprised I don't see this chap more often in Tomb King armies. But this wouldn't be a Tomb King book if it didn't involve some skellybobs, and we have got the Skeleton Infantry Cohorts. These are a unique core choice available to the Nekharan Royal Hosts. On the surface, they do cost 1 point more than your regular skellybob, but they do come with all of the equipment. So actually, overall, I think you're saving points. They've got hand weapons, thrusting spears, light armor, and shields. And you can also have a mixture of warriors and archers. And the archers come with light armor and warbows. Whether you go for warriors or archers, they're both 5 points each. And they have a typical skeleton stat line with that weapon skill and ballistic skill of 2, strength 3, toughness 3. You guys know the rest. The big thing with the infantry cohorts is you can mix them. So you can have both warriors and archers inside the same unit. And there are some rules on how you need to build this unit, what its composition should be. When writing your muster list, a skeleton infantry cohort must contain at least 10 Royal Host warriors and 10 Royal Host archers. Royal Host warriors always occupy the front ranks of the unit, pushing past any Royal Host archers to get there if necessary. Now, you might think that this kind of screws over the archer part of the unit. After all, if they're not in the front ranks, they're going to struggle to get some line of sight. But don't forget that the warbows do have volley fire, so they will be able to shoot even if they're in the second or third or fourth ranks, albeit with only half shots. And there is a special rule for the Nekharan Royal Hosts called Steadfast Discipline, which means that you can volley fire even if you move or stand and shoot. So in theory, how this unit is meant to operate is the warriors go up the front, presenting the spear wall, and the archers go behind, providing some covering fire and also some decent stand and shoot, making the unit able to take on a few different foes and maybe even get a little bit of combat res and a few kills. I do like these guys. I really do. And I think out of all of the basic skeleton units we've seen, these are the most interesting. However, I don't think that they're necessary. In a Royal Host, you can take Tomb King as core. And what's more, you can also take regular skeleton archers as core as well. And so we kind of get back to the same problem as we did when we were running the main army, the Grand Army. Why would you bother with the spear skeletons when the archer ones can do damage, they can have poison, and they fill up that core requirement? And if you want skeleton warriors that can do damage, you might as well just go for the Tomb Guard. So sadly, I am going to give the skeleton infantry cohorts a pass, but rest assured, it is a begrudging one because I do really like the concept. However, one infantry unit that I am going to give a smash to is the Venerable Ushabti. These are just 7 points more than your regular Ushabti, but they have got an extra weapon skill. They have got an extra strength, and they come with magical resistance too. Oh, baby. That extra weapon skill is so good, and that extra strength is so damn good because you still have the ritual blades, which give you that +2 strength, meaning that you're up to strength 7. That means a lot of dragons, you're going to be wounding them on 3s. A lot of big monsters, like, not the Cygors, the Gorgon, that's the one that people actually take. You're going to be wounding that thing on 3s. And it means even steam tanks are going to be wounded on 4s. And they're one of the toughest units in the entire game. The only downside to the Venerable Ushabti is you can't take the big bows. Not the end of the world. You wouldn't want to take Venerable Ushabti with the big bows because they don't have any better ballistic skill. You might as well just take regular Ushabti for that. The other thing is they are only movement 4 versus movement 5. But in my opinion, I think the 7 points and the tiny reduction in movement is well worth the extra weapon skill and the extra strength and the magical resistance. From the heady heights of the Venerable Ushabti down into the utter pit of the underworld, we have got the Skeleton Cavalry Cohort. They're just bad. They're just the same as the other Skeleton Cavalry in the main book, except for now, you are forced to take at least 10 of them in a unit. You've got to have at least 5 Royal Host Horsemen and 5 Royal Host Archers. So now, joy of joys, you have to take 10 utterly shite, overpriced skeletons on horses. Avoid like the plague. Speaking of cavalry, we have got Necroserpents. These are essentially just the snakes from the Necro Knight unit. It's a cool idea. They're a lot cheaper, only 38 points. But you don't have the Tomb Guard riding around on top. And for me, I feel like the Tomb Guard was really the best bit. He was bringing the big cavalry spear and some decent AP and all that kind of stuff. The Necroserpent has got weapon skill 3, strength 5, +4, 3 wounds, and 3 attacks. They have to be taken in squads of 2 minimum. You can obviously have more than that if you want. They are ambushers. They're armored hides. That's a 6-up save. They still do impact hits 1. They're still indomitable 1. They have move through cover. They've got poison attacks. Regen 6+ for stride. But there's nothing else there. No AP on any of these attacks. They are a relatively cheap source of poisoned close combat attacks. But remember that the Tomb Kings don't really struggle to get poison thanks to the fact you've got that Amulet of the Serpent. If you're looking for poison attacks, I think you're much better off going for just happening to have them on the Necro Knights or having those archers with the Amulet of the Serpent. And last but certainly not least, we have got the Tomb Guard Chariots. Outside of Settra, these guys may have been the reason people were most excited for the Tomb King Arcane Journal. As you would expect, these are essentially skeleton chariots which are really souped up by having the benefit of having a Tomb Guard crew. Now they are 53 points a pop versus 43 points a pop for the regular skeleton chariots. You also have to take them in minimum squad sizes of 3, unlike the skeleton chariots who can be taken as just 1 chariot squads. So, however you slice it, you are going to be spending a lot more points on them. But I do think that it's worth spending those points. Firstly, you have an armor value of 4+ versus an armor value of 5+. You also come equipped with halberds and shields. Now, this is in comparison to having cavalry spears and warbows. The cavalry spears versus halberds argument basically means both units are going to have the same strength, but the Tomb Guard are going to have that strength throughout the combats rather than just when they charge. Speaking of charging, the Tomb Guard Chariots do more impact hits with D3 plus 1 impact hits rather than just the regular D3. They also have Khopesh if you ever want to use those hand weapons. Now, you might want to use those hand weapons because of the shields. Now, I do need a little bit of help from you guys down in the comment section here. If the chariot has an armor value of 4+, and then you have shields, does that mean the chariot can have up to a 3+ save? Or are the shields already taken into account with the Tomb Guard Chariot's 4+ armor value? Either way, it's good armor. But if you can get up to a 3+ save and still maintain some form of AP thanks to the Khopesh rule, that's very tasty. Not only that, they've also got Indomitable 2, whereas the regular chariots don't have any form of Indomitable, and they still manage to maintain having the reserve move and Swift Stride. Overall, these are just a fantastic unit. Really good. And I think they are one of the greatest reasons, the biggest appeals of going down full Nekharan Royal Host. And with all of that, we come to the end of the units. That is every single Tomb King unit reviewed. Pros and cons, smash or pass. But remember, guys, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are there any assessments that you disagree with? Is there anything that I've got wrong? Please let me know. I'm always open to feedback. And are there any other factions that you want me to give this treatment and go through and take a look at their units? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.